Have you ever found yourself thinking, who is this angry, impatient person, and what have they done with me? If that sounds familiar, this explainer is definitely for you. We're going to dive into why perimenopause can feel less like a gentle transition and more like a hostile takeover of your personality, especially if you've always been the one who holds it all together.
This right here, this is such a core signal. It's a feeling that so many women who've always been seen as calm, capable, and dependable, report with a sense of shock and even shame. So what on earth happens when your own body, your own nervous system, seems to turn on the very identity you've built your entire life around?
So let's just start by naming what this actually feels like from the inside. It often hits you as this sudden, really alarming shift in who you are. It's like an emotional hijacking that leaves you feeling completely out of your own control.
Okay, first up, there's the rage. And we're not talking about just being a little bit irritated. This is a sudden, white-hot anger that feels totally, completely out of proportion to whatever set it off. You know, a misplaced set of keys, one extra question at the end of a long day, a single dirty dish left in the sink. You just go from 0 to 100 with absolutely no warning.
And then there's the brain fog. That incredibly frustrating feeling of walking into a room and having no idea why you're there, or losing your words right in the middle of an important sentence at work. Your mind, which used to be your sharpest, most reliable tool, suddenly feels like it's just full of static. It makes it so hard to function. So when you put all of this together, it adds up to this deep, really unsettling feeling of identity confusion. You might look in the mirror and genuinely not recognize the person staring back at you. And the shame that comes with that can be so intense, because this person you are now feels miles away from the capable, composed person you've always prided yourself on being.
And what happens is, this whole experience gets trapped between two really unhelpful stories. On the one hand, you get dismissed as just hormonal or unstable. But on the other hand, your own history of competence gets used against you. People say, you just need to cope better, or you can handle anything, you always have. Both of these takes completely, totally miss what's actually going on.
So let's reframe this whole thing. What if this isn't some new personality flaw that's just appeared out of nowhere? What if instead it's an old and actually very intelligent survival pattern that has just run out of road?
This idea right here really shifts us away from self-blame and into more of a cost-benefit analysis. The way you've been operating for years wasn't wrong. In fact, it was smart. It worked. But now the price of running that old program has just become way too high.
And there's actually a name for that old intelligent pattern. It's called dependable overfunctioning. Now, this is not a personality trait. It is a learned survival adaptation. You learned, probably a long time ago, that being super competent, anticipating everyone's needs, and absorbing conflict, well, it kept your world stable and predictable. It was a strategy to make sure you felt safe, like you belonged, and that you were worthy.
And here is the absolute crucial point. Perimenopause isn't creating a new, angry personality. It's just removing the hormonal and energetic margin, that buffer, that allowed your old survival program to run smoothly in the background without you even noticing. The system is the same. It's just that the cost of running it is no longer hidden.
Okay, so now that we get why that cost is suddenly so visible, let's map out the sequence that actually leads from that quiet overfunctioning to these explosive symptoms. If we can map it out, we can understand what's happening internally, and hopefully it'll start to feel a little less chaotic. So the pattern pretty much unfolds in 3 stages. First, you've got the trigger. The system just runs out of margin. Then, in response, that old adaptation, dependable overfunctioning, kicks into overdrive. But because there's no buffer left, this now leads directly to the cost: the rage, the brain fog, and that awful feeling of losing yourself.
Now, the trigger isn't just one thing. It's a pileup. It's a perfect storm. You've got the hormonal shifts reducing your body's natural resilience. You've got years and years of accumulated exhaustion, the mental load of all that invisible labor, plus the constant, uninterrupted demands from work and home. You've practiced suppressing your own needs for so long that one tiny final request can feel like a genuine threat.
And what does this adaptation look like in your day-to-day life? Well, it's all the things you do without even thinking about it. It's planning the meals, remembering all the birthdays, de-escalating a tense conversation before it even starts, and quietly handling all the logistics so nobody else has to. It's that constant, low-level hum of work to prove your value by being completely indispensable.
You know, for a long time, this adaptation probably seemed like it had no downside. You were competent, you were needed, things ran smoothly. What's the problem? Well, there was always a price, and now that hidden cost is bursting into view.
This really shows the split, doesn't it? On the outside, what everyone sees is a performance of composure, capability, and calm. But the hidden internal cost? That's self-neglect. It's saying yes when you desperately mean no, which we call false agreement. And it's this deep, deep well of delayed resentment that's been building up for years.
And this cost, it doesn't just stay in one place. Oh no, it spills out across every single part of your life. The most visible part, of course, is the emotional explosions, but it also creates real strain in your relationships, it messes with your ability to function at work, and, at its very core, it leads to a collapse of your sense of self.
Now, here's another really powerful way to think about this. That rage, it isn't just a random frustrating symptom. It's truth delivered late. It is your nervous system finally screaming no more in the only language it has left after years and years of your conscious mind suppressing that exact same message just to keep the peace.
So, where do we go from here? Well, the good news is that this collapse is not the end of the story. It's actually an invitation. A really aggressive one maybe, but an invitation to a more dignified and sustainable way of being. This is the path from paying the cost to achieving what we can call mastery.
And it is so important to get this next part. We are not trying to kill off the dependable you. That competence, that ability to care and to organize, that is a huge strength. The goal is to regulate that intelligence, to bring it back under your conscious control, so that it serves you instead of costing you your own well-being. So we call this new, healthier version mastery. Think of it as a stewardship role. You are still capable, you are still caring, but, and this is the huge difference, you are honest about your capacity much, much earlier. Your life is no longer organized around that hidden, compulsory rule that says you have to erase your own needs to be worthy of love and respect.
So what does this actually look like in practice? Well, it's saying, you know what, I just don't have the bandwidth for that today. It's making those invisible lists and plans visible so they can actually be shared. It's treating your own recovery time as a non-negotiable part of the schedule. And maybe most importantly, it's unhooking your fundamental sense of worth from your daily productivity.
I really want you to let this one sink in. If you take away only one thing from all of this, let it be this. The problem is not a moral failure in your character. The problem is the unsustainable structure that your nervous system has been forced to carry, and that structure is finally, and rightly, breaking under the load.
Look, I know this experience feels like a breakdown. It is painful, it is disorienting, and it can be really frightening. But what if it's actually a breakthrough? An aggressive, uncomfortable, but ultimately necessary invitation to build a life that is finally, truly honest.